Hello and welcome to my first episode of my knitting series for absolute beginners. This will be a multiple part series, and at the end you will have a swatch of multiple different parts of knitting, types of knitting, that will allow you to do the basics in knitting. This is designed for someone who has never knitted before in their lives and have no idea how to get started. So the first things first, before you start knitting, you need to have needles. Now this is one type of needles. As you can see, they're quite long, and these are metal. You have three types of most knitting needles come in one of three types: either metal, plastic, or wood. Now, you can also see that they all come in different sizes. You'll see on the ends of these ones and on the tips of these. This set doesn't have any, unfortunately. But on most knitting needles, on the ends or on the sides like this, you will see a set of numbers. You'll either see it in millimeters, US sizes, or you'll see it in both, as we do here. My suggestion is that you start out with knitting needles that are a size, not a size 15. I suggest you start with something about in the middle, which would be these. These are size 8, which converted is a, what is that? It's a size 5 millimeters. If you can knit with this size, with a size 8, then you'll be able to do most projects. The general rule of thumb is that the larger that the yarn is, or the thicker that the yarn is, the bigger size needles you'll use. For example, these big 15s, you would be using some really thick, heavier wool or yarn. So you probably won't use these very often. These, as you can see, are a lot longer. It is easier to start out with shorter. I suggest that you start out with either metal or plastic, but these were the ones that I started out with. My wooden ones, I think, are bamboo. A lot of them are made out of bamboo, but they can, especially if you get the longer ones, they can break pretty easily. So metal, some shorter metal pairs would probably be best in a size 8 US. Anyway, so we're going to put those aside. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen circular needles, or you have seen long needles that have points on both ends. You'll see this one only has points on both ends, sorry. You can see that this one only has a point on one end. If you see it with a point on both ends, those are called double pointed or DPN, double pointed needles. You don't want to start out with those. You want to start out with straight knitting needles with points on only just one side when you're getting started. Now, on to the second part of this episode, the kind of yarn you're going to use. Yarn comes in all sorts of colors, all sorts of types, all sorts of fabrics. Most people, if they're starting out, should be starting out with something that's fairly cheap. Nothing quite like this. This is very, very fine. Not a good idea for somebody who's starting because it will take forever to knit anything. You also have the option, if you want, that you can start with something a lot thicker. This is called bulky yarn, and it's not what we're going to start with, but if you have the option, or if you have the inclination, you could start with something that's heavier like this. I'm going to say, though, that if whatever you do choose something that is flat and smooth. You can get a lot of the fancier yarns now with pieces sticking out, and what happens is when you go to knit, you might accidentally poke something through and get it caught. It's not a good idea to get anything other than the straight and smooth stuff if you're just starting out, just to make your life easier. Now, when you're looking for yarn, most types of yarn, this is Loops and Threads Impeccable. It's a good standard yarn. You can make some really nice stuff out of it, and you can, and it comes in a ton of different colors, which is great, and it's pretty soft as well. You want to look for something like this, where there is a number on it. If you see the number 4, or medium, or the word worsted, W-O-R-S-T-E-D, worsted, that is your average medium-size yarn that is going to go well with size 8 needles, and it'll knit up pretty fast. For somebody who is just learning, it's nice to see your stuff. It's nice to see your stuff pretty quickly, unlike the really thin yarn, which will take forever and you might get frustrated. So I'm not starting out with this. This is a brand new one. But what we are going to do on the next episode is we are going to start out with this orange. I've chosen this orange in medium for worsted because it will show up nicely, as you can see on the screen, and it'll be easy for you to follow along. Thank you, and please join me for the next episode where we will learn the basics of casting on. Thank you.